Hello everyone, Alyxx the Rat here, and I want to talk a little about Star Fox. Star Fox, or Starwing as it's called here in Europe, is one of those games that's always stayed in my memory. When I grew up, we didn't really buy consoles that much. We basically had a SNES and that was our console, even as newer and more impressive consoles came out such as the N64 and PlayStation. So when I had friends over and wanted to impress them, I'd show them Star Fox. Sure, it didn't look as impressive as those newer consoles, but it was still a real-time 3D game running on the Super Nintendo. In my eyes, that proved to me that the Super Nintendo could do all those things that newer consoles could do, and that it was a really powerful console. Of course, I had no concept of what the Super FX chip was or anything like that, so I just assumed the Super Nintendo was doing all the 3D stuff. In either case, I was never really exposed to more Star Fox games after that. My friends had the N64 and GameCube, but I never really got to dive into any Star Fox games on those consoles until much later. So for a large chunk of my childhood and adolescent years, SNES Star Fox was the only Star Fox game I had any kind of relationship with. What a relationship it was. I played the absolute frick out again. I mastered all the routes, I found all the secrets. I would strap a headset to my head so I could pretend to be Fox. So I'm pretty sure I can even blame the game for me becoming a furry. Well, that and a whole bunch of Disney movies, but let's not get too on track here. Anyway, that leads me to the game that I actually want to talk about today, Ex-Zodiac. Ex-Zodiac is basically a spiritual successor of sorts to that original Star Fox game, and yeah, just looking at it you can tell the influence is strong. There's this low poly super effects look to the game with a heavy inspiration from both Star Fox and Star Fox 2, which wouldn't be released until recently when Nintendo included it on NSO as well as the SNES Mini. And sure, we might as well throw in some Space Harrier in there as well for good measure. Keep in mind the game is still in early access and still in development, so this will be less of a review and more just my first impressions so far, and I have some suggestions I think that could help improve the game. So let's dive into Ex-Zodiac and see just how much power we are playing with. Ex-Zodiac plays almost identically to Star Fox, though I would say it's a bit of a mix between Star Fox 1 and 2. They have the same kind of linear levels from Star Fox, but the weapons feel more akin to Star Fox 2, be it how you can charge a laser and use the cursor to lock onto enemies. But seriously, if you play Star Fox, you should feel right at home here. And for the flashing weak spots, then fire away. Using the lock-on charge shots help a lot too, since there tends to be a lot of enemies on screen, though you can only lock on to maximum 3 enemies at once. I do wish there was more weapon upgrades though. The laser upgrade is fine and all, but doesn't look that substantially different from the regular laser. In Star Fox, the wing laser upgrade would spread the shots further apart and kind of give a more distinct difference between the single laser and the dual laser. Not to mention, if you upgraded it one step over that, you got to shoot plasma orbs. I really feel we need like a third upgrade similar to that in Ex-Zodiac, or at the very least make the laser upgrade feel more substantially different. Heck, the sound is identical when you upgrade it, so it doesn't even feel like an upgrade. In general, the regular laser feels kind of underpowered and underwhelming. I think it could be improved a little. The controls feel pretty good. You can play with a keyboard or a controller. I tried it out with both my Xbox controller and my Nintendo Switch SNES controller just for the sake of it, and I actually think it plays better with the SNES controller, and I'm not just saying that because of the resemblance to a SNES game. I noticed that the sensitivity while using a thumbstick was kind of higher than using on a D-pad, so I felt I had much better control with that. I also tend to tap the D-pad when playing due to how the cursor auto-centers. It allows for a kind of precision aiming that I find is hard to do with a thumbstick. I know it sounds weird, but I kind of just instinctively do this, and that's how I've always played Star Fox. Otherwise, the controls are extremely Star Foxy. You use the left and right tricks to tilt to one side and can tap them to, well, roll it.
Do a barrel roll!
You can also boost, break, drop some bombs, and yeah, it plays exactly like Star Fox, though the controls do change during the Space Harrier bonus stages, where you have less control over your speed, but you suddenly have auto fire, which can be a little jarring. I swear every time I enter a bonus stage I spend like half the stage button mashing before I realize I can just hold it down simply because that's how I play the main game. You can also choose to invert the vertical controls, which is a bit weird considering you can just rebind the up and down controls, but I like that they include the option either way, since you can invert the controls for the main game and the bonus stages individually, which I like since I actually prefer not having them inverted in the bonus stages. It makes sense since the bonus stages kind of feel like their own game. Like, they're more like Space Harrier than Star Fox, so they feel different enough that they warrant slightly different controls. The bosses are also taken straight out of Star Fox. I mean, sometimes quite literally with this rock crusher enemy here that I swear I saw in Star Fox. Ah, yeah, there he is. There was actually a boss in Star Fox called the Rock Crusher, but it looked entirely different, so this is almost a double knockoff here, where they're taking the name of one Star Fox box and the design of another and kind of just bash them together. The little introductory cutscene you get before each boss also feels extremely reminiscent of Star Fox 2 and definitely Star Fox 64, which one of the later stages takes some obvious inspiration from, where you're riding a bike along the road in some big city. Actually, it does feel a little bit similar to one of the stages from the original Star Fox, where you're kind of flying along this sky road with hoverbikes chasing you. Look, I'm not gonna fault them for taking inspiration from Star Fox. This is exactly the kind of game I've been dying to play for years, and in my mind, the original Star Fox games are still some of the best arcade-style shooters you can play on the SNES and N64. And with Ex-Zodiac, you literally get the best of those games without sacrificing the frame rate. So, let's get to talking about one of the most standout features of this game, which is the graphics. The original Super FX games from the SNES might look extremely dated today, pretty much in the same way the original Tron from 1992 looks dated. But when the 3D graphics evolved to become increasingly realistic, the abstract style of early 3D graphics kind of died off a bit. I don't know about you, but I personally really enjoy this kind of low poly graphics, and I always have. Even in the 90s when more impressive games were around, something about these sharp low-res polygons with simple shading really appealed to me. Sure, it looks like something out of Homeworld, man, something that in the early 90s would no doubt be labeled virtual reality. That's also kind of the appeal of it. Ex-Zodiac brings this kind of style back in full force, and I can't help but love it. It also offers a high-res mode that, in my opinion, looks a little bit weird, because while the 3D modes are high-res, the sectors and sprites are not, meaning you get this weird blend of highly pixelated graphics mixed with smooth and clean 3D graphics, and it just ends up looking a little cursed, not gonna lie. So, personally, I prefer the retro look since it keeps things much more visually consistent. Not to mention the Super FX vibes are way stronger that way, in my opinion. And yeah, the game runs buttery smooth. Unfortunately, it doesn't support a frame rate cap above 60, but I hear the developers are working on that, so that might be something we'll see in the future. But 60 is still way higher than any of the Super FX games I've played, so I welcome it. The only thing that kind of bothered me was the intensity of some of the flashing. Like, I don't suffer from epilepsy or anything, but I kind of feel like this warrants an epilepsy warning, because and the boss stats get some rather some strobing going on. So maybe tone that down a bit for photosensitive players, or add an option to the simple strobing, I don't know. Or at the very least add a message, like when you start the game, that there will be some strobing. While Ex-Zodiac plays and looks really good, the sound design is definitely the weak point for me. The sound effects feel a bit understated all the time, none of them really standing out that much or drawing my attention like they do in Star Fox. And the ship noise, it's so low. Like seriously, none of the ships in this game make any noise. In the original Star Fox, you constantly had the sound of your ship flying, which added a sense of ambience and realism to the game. In Ex-Zodiac, there's almost none of that, even from the enemy ships. It kind of makes the game feel a bit muted. Like, the ship noise is there, but it's extremely silent, and I didn't even know it was there to begin with. I also noticed that in some stages, some sounds get extremely loud and drown out everything else. And that wasn't even because I turned the volume up to 100%, because even when I had it at 50%, which is the default volume, some specific sounds, like, they became extremely loud. It was extremely noticeable during one certain stage, like this stage here. Like, just listen to this. I think there's some audio stacking issues going on here. To explain what I mean, imagine if you played a single sound on top of itself several times in a row, and it would just kind of get louder and louder. That's kind of what I think is going on here. It's a little bit distracting, but yeah. I've seen the same in other games, and it's unfortunately a bit of a common problem, but it should be easily fixed. So the music, it's not that bad actually. It sounds very arcadey and a bit snazzy too. Like, there's some like orchestral hits here and there and like driving beats and stuff. It feels a little bit bland and backgroundy, but it's growing on me actually. Like, I've been playing this game for a while now, and yeah, I like it. It's just that it's not as good as classic games and even some other indie games, but for what it's worth, it fits really well with the aesthetic. Overall, I think Ex-Zodiac is a very promising early access title, and I had a lot of fun with it. It feels a bit short, not gonna lie, but it is early access, and I said that there's more stuff coming. While I do miss the like different routes you had in Star Fox, Star Fox was more like you went from stage to stage. Here you can actually choose which stage you want to play, and that kind of explains why your weapon upgrades gets reset between stages, since it wouldn't make sense to start a stage with like super upgraded lasers when it's your first stage. It does feel a little too linear though. I kind of wish that it was more like the original Star Fox, where you had different routes and like a bit more replay value. You do have the bonus stages, and unlocking those is part of the fun, because you have to like be a bit good at the game to do that. It is definitely a love letter to classic arcade games, and specifically the Super FX titles that I grew up playing. I can't wait to see what's coming. So that was Ex-Zodiac. Let me know what you think about the game in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the game on Steam. And yes, this game runs natively on Linux, and it runs great. Steam really is invaluable to have on Linux gaming PC, so kudos to devs for supporting Linux. See you later, and take care.